Many of the symptoms we call PTSD or chronic stress may be a survival response that never got to finish. We all have the ability to heal ourselves. Cuts heal, bruises fade, fevers break, bones knit. But some processes get interrupted and don't complete. Most people come to see me because something in their system began exactly as it should, but is still continuing. A natural biological process started and got interrupted. When people talk about PTSD, they often imagine a disorder. After all, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. It suggests something is broken or malfunctioning. I think there may be another way of understanding it. During trauma, the system becomes laser focused. It strips away everything unimportant in that moment and only allows you to see things that keep you alive. The world narrows. The purpose is to survive this moment. And it works. That narrowing is the reason people make it through. But there's a cost. Everything that couldn't be dealt with in the moment, every sensation, every impulse, every fragment of meaning gets pushed into a bin, and the lid goes on. That lid keeps all the difficult sensations, impulses and meaning pushed down so that you can see what is important. Not because you're weak, but because you need to know what is important. The reason for doing this is so that you don't have to deal with everything in one go. The idea is that when you get home, when you're in a safe place, you can then deal with all those things that got put in the bin. Many of the problems I see seem to arise when the things in the bin do not get sorted because the clearing process got interrupted. People come to me saying, I'm exhausted, I'm numb, I'm angry all the time, I'm drinking more than I want to. They think those are the problems. Indeed, they look like the problems, but often they're consequences or distractions from the real problem. What I often see happening is that the system is still trying to finish what it started. Something in the bin is pushing against the lid, trying to complete the moment that never had a chance to complete. And here's the part people rarely talk about. When that unfinished experience tries to surface, to get completed, it doesn't feel like a memory. It feels like now. The body reacts as if the danger has returned, even though it hasn't. It does what it did last time. It puts it in the bin and puts the lid down. Not because it's confused, but because it knows that actually works. But that action interrupts the process and the clearing can't complete. So people learn to hold the lid down hard. They stay busy. They stay distracted. They stay away from anything that resonates with what's in the bin. They think that emptying the bin is equivalent to stirring up all the problems again, and they don't do it. And that works for a while. But holding the lid down takes energy, a huge amount of energy. Energy that should be available for living, connecting, resting, thinking. PTSD isn't a sign of a broken system. It's the sign of a system that did exactly what it needed to do, but never got to finish. Once you see this clearly in trauma, you begin to notice similar patterns elsewhere. Take anxiety. Worry, scanning, anticipation, all appropriate when something genuinely needs resolving. But when the question has no answer or the person never reaches one, the loop continues running. Anxiety looks like getting prepared, but it's really preparation without an endpoint. Another unfinished process. In some forms of depression, it can begin as a legitimate response to overwhelm or loss, a way of reducing stimulation while something reorganizes. But when that reorganization never completes, the shutdown becomes chronic. What began as conservation becomes a trap. So, not failure, incompletion. Even trivial things show the same mechanism. Earworms, the fragment of a song that gets stuck in your head. People try to stop it, and the more they try, the more it sticks. But when the song is brought fully into awareness and allowed to finish, the loop resolves. No effort, no technique. It disappears because the process completes. Stress is simply the bin in action on a smaller scale. A shock, a near miss, an argument. In the moment, attention narrows. Everything else gets set aside into the bin. What we call stress is the effort of keeping the lid on while what's inside is trying to get out and complete. When the system is ready, the body finds a way to discharge it. Crying, shaking, a restless night. And often, that's an end to it. Unless the bin doesn't empty. Then the stress stays. Not because the system is broken, but because something hasn't finished. Just like trauma, only smaller. Symptom management can be essential, sometimes life-saving. Management can stabilize, but it doesn't necessarily complete the underlying process. It keeps things in place, and the lid still needs effort to hold down. Management quietly resets expectations by saying, this is lifelong, or this is as good as it gets, or this is something to live with. But that's not my experience. When completion happens, symptoms often reduce dramatically and sometimes resolve entirely. Not because they've been silenced or managed, but because their job is done. Symptoms aren't mistakes, they're signals. They may point to what hasn't finished. If you know how to follow those signals without overwhelming the system, the process can complete. In my experience, for a process to complete, 3 things need to be in place. 1, the system must not be overwhelmed. You need to recognize when you're approaching the limit and slow down before tipping over. 2, attention must stay on track. People escape what's difficult through distraction, dissociation, or analysis. You have to notice when that happens and gently return. And 3, you have to recognize when something is actually finished, not managed, not quieter, but finished. There's a moment when the effort drops away, a still point. In trauma work, this moment is often very clear. It can feel as though the bin is empty. But careful attention matters. Sometimes there are layers that only reveal themselves with careful observation. When the process truly completes, physiological markers often change: breathing, muscle tone, eye focus, and the lid no longer needs holding down. When the struggle drops away, something else appears. A stillness, a sense of being here without effort, a presence. I don't mind what you call this state. Some people call it God, others don't call it God. Either way, it's fine. If it needs a name, then I call it a still point. I'm talking about what's left when nothing is being resisted. In that state, people don't become passive, they become clearer. They know themselves. So whether it's a trauma that won't let go, a stress that won't settle, a song that won't stop, or a body that has begun to protest, the important question isn't how do I manage this, it's what hasn't completed. When completion happens, symptoms often quieten and sometimes disappear. Not because they've been pushed down, but because they're finished. When that happens, there's nothing left to hold down.